Hi everybody, this is Kathlyn Hinesley with Exploring Dimensions for All. Today I'm going to be reading from my book, Welcome to Infinity, Exploring Ancient and Modern Techniques for Collaborating with Otherworldly Beings. I'm going to be reading Chapter 9, which focuses on sacred sites around the world, and it's called Knowledge of the Ancients. This is going to be divided into two parts. This is part 1 of 2. A cold breeze passed over me as I walked down the narrow shaft that guarded the entrance to a little-known pyramid in Egypt's Saqqara complex near Memphis. Hieroglyphic writing lined the walls. I soon entered a small, dimly lit chamber just inside and sat cross-legged on the floor against a hard stone wall. I felt compelled to meditate there, partly, as I later explained to a friend, because of my cultural upbringing. After all, that's what hippie chicks from California came to Egypt to do, meditate in pyramids. I'd feel the vibrations from long ago, and at the very least had mystical tales to tell at parties upon my return. I'd been disappointed to learn that visitors weren't being allowed to visit the Pyramid of Unas that day. Oh well, I thought, at least I'd have a chance to meditate in the Great Pyramid later that afternoon. Sensing my disappointment, our Egyptian guide had pointed to this structure. It didn't look like a pyramid, but rather like a well-guarded cave. Maybe it wasn't a pyramid at all, I thought. Perhaps it was just an underground storage chamber. I resolved to make the best of it and meditate in at least one stone structure at Saqqara. I sat on the cold stone floor with my back against a wall covered with hieroglyphics and closed my eyes, trying as I do daily to imagine a place of silence. Nothing could have prepared me for what was about to occur. This time, just as my thoughts slowed, I felt myself being pulled into a world equally as real as the one we inhabit, but strangely different. I soon found myself gazing down at a village of straw huts, as if from above. Huge stone giants, many stories high, were walking across the landscape, hovering over tiny dwellings that looked like clumps of grass next to their feet. The giants resembled the carvings and statues I'd seen of Egyptian gods earlier that day. Searchlights beamed in all directions, illuminating the night sky. "Stop! This is not for you," I heard a voice say. The voice was friendly but firm. It wasn't exactly audible, but it wasn't something I'd thought up either. "Just a minute, this is really interesting," I heard myself think in response. Besides, I didn't want to stop, especially not for a voice that wasn't connected to a guard, a policeman, or any human authority. After all, when would I be in Egypt again? Wasn't this why I had come? I felt myself being pulled deeper and deeper into the vision. The scene was quickly becoming more real, threatening to take on greater depth than the world my physical body inhabited. "Don't meditate here. This is not for you," the voice said again, this time more loudly. Whomever or whatever it was clearly losing patience. Still unmoved, I followed the searchlights up with my eyes, and saw that they were in fact headlights attached to flying vehicles. They seemed quick and small, too small for the giants to use, yet I couldn't imagine how the tiny hut dwellers below could have built them. In the few seconds since I'd last heard the voice, a kind of anxious discomfort had set in. My consciousness was increasingly being drawn into the scene before me. Somehow I knew it would soon become my whole world. If I didn't stop and heed the voice of the unseen messenger, the body I'd grown so close to in life might simply disappear, leaving me without an opportunity to say goodbye to anyone I'd known in life. I sensed I was drawing ever closer to a strange, uncertain future, skating on the brink of an unknown world, a world without friends, a name, or a purpose. Still, I felt compelled to travel onwards. What were those ships? Who was driving them? Was this an entryway? A porthole to another dimension? "Stop! This is not for you!" This time the voice shook me to the very core, bringing me back to the present where I found my body still sitting cross-legged on the floor. Relieved this time to have been saved by something or someone with more wisdom than I offered a silent prayer of apology and stood up. As I made my way back up to the entrance, my head pounded. Alternating visions of light and darkness impaired my vision. Was I back here? Was I really here? Was part of me back there? Where was I? What had been pulling me? "Are you all right?" asked my father, who'd been waiting for me at the entrance. How could I possibly explain what had just occurred to him, or even to myself? "I think they made a ship, some kind of machine in there that takes people to another dimension," I stammered, making no sense at all. In the taxi on the way back to the hotel, I began to think about everything I'd read about Egypt's pyramids and temples, and other mysterious structures built by ancient cultures around the world. Complex astronomical, geographic, and mathematical calculations used in building many ancient sites suggest that our ancestors must have possessed advanced scientific knowledge that hasn't been reacquired until very recently. Archaeological findings at sites such as the Egyptian pyramid complex at Giza, the Teotihuacan pyramids in Mexico, and Stonehenge in England incorporate information on the size of the Earth, the placement of celestial bodies, and the position of the Earth relative to the rest of the cosmos. The site of the 3 pyramids at Giza, for example, appears to have been chosen by a people that had, in some fashion, been able to make precise calculations about the geography of the Earth. In his book, Pyramid Odyssey, William R. Fix points out that Giza is near a point where the global latitude and longitude lines covering the greatest land surface on Earth cross. This is footnote 1, William R. Fix, Pyramid Odyssey, Urbana, Mercury Media, Inc., 1984, page 5. Pyramids at Giza and the Acapana Pyramid in Bolivia, parentheses, which according to native sources existed in pre-Inca times, footnote 2, close parentheses. Graham Hancock, Fingerprints of the Gods, New York, Three Rivers Press, 1995, page 72, are, quote, oriented with surprising precision towards the cardinal points, end quote, footnote 3, IBID, page 75. What possible purpose could such calculations have served? Archaeologists suspect that many ancient sites, such as the Angkor Wat complex in Cambodia, Stonehenge in England, and the Tiahuanaco complex in Bolivia, might have functioned as stone calendars. Many of these structures may have been used as observatories to help track the passage of time for farming purposes. It has been suggested, for example, that Cala Sasea, an ancient structure at Tiahuanaco, might have been built to help keep track of seasonal solar changes. This is footnote 4, IBID, page 77. It also appears that our ancestors went to great lengths to mimic placements of heavenly bodies in space. In the Orion Mystery, Robert Bauval argues that the alignment of the 3 pyramids at Giza mimics the alignment of stars on the belt of Orion. Footnote 5, Robert Bauval and Adrian Gilbert, The Orion Mystery, Unlocking the Secrets of the Pyramids, New York, Crown Publishers, Inc., 1994, page 114 to 124. The builders of Stonehenge, too, appear to have incorporated astronomical alignments in their work. Footnote 6, Evan Haddingham, The Secrets of Stonehenge, in Reader's Digest, The World's Last Mysteries, 3rd printing, Pleasantville, The Reader's Digest Association, Inc., 1979, page 90. A study of the Teotihuacan Pyramid Complex in Mexico undertaken by American engineer Hugh Harleston Jr., indicates, quote, that Teotihuacan might originally have been designed as a precise scale model of the solar system, end quote, footnote 7. Hancock, Fingerprints, page 167. The stone calendar theory notwithstanding, it's clear from ancient records that other archaeological findings that the builders of many ancient pyramids and temple sites it's clear from ancient written records and other archaeological findings that the builders of many ancient pyramids and temple sites intended them to serve as bridges between the seen and unseen worlds. Many temples were dedicated to specific gods and adorned with statues and carvings representing these deities. Religious rituals performed at many ancient sites served to honor heavenly beings and keep the lines of communication between the human and spirit worlds open. The Mayans believed in the importance of human communion with the spirit world and built pyramids to facilitate this. Quote, the Maya cosmos was an animate, living system in which invisible powers governed all aspects of the visible world, all that was to be seen in the earth and sky, and even the underworld hidden beneath. End quote, footnote 8. Robert J. Scherer, The Ancient Maya, 5th edition, Stanford University Press, 1994, page 69. Could calculations incorporated in the building of Stonehenge, Angkor Wat, the Egyptian and Mexican pyramids, and other ancient sites have served a dual purpose? When pondering this question, it's helpful to consider that our ancient brethren did not recognize a division between physical forces and spiritual concepts in the same way that our scientists and academics do today. Instead, divine beings were believed to rule over the forces of nature and provide the spiritual energy needed for physical changes in the material world. Human beings were considered responsible for collaborating with the spirits in charge of energetic forces in order to help promote a harmonious universal order. In keeping with such a belief system, observing the movements of the sun, moon, and stars would have helped to put people in touch with the activities of the gods. By building calendars in stone, the ancients learned to predict eclipses and keep track of passing seasons. Timekeeping served ritual purposes as well. In advance of certain seasons, important to the farming cycle, for example, our ancestors would hold ceremonies to communicate with spirits believed to be responsible for weather changes and plant growth. By cooperating with spiritual forces in the earth, sky, and invisible realms, humans ensured their success on earth. The calendar function built into many sites would thus have served both practical and spiritual purposes, which would of course have been viewed as intimately connected. As mentioned above, it appears that ancient peoples went to great lengths to create architectural structures that modeled the known universe, whether mythological, physical, or both. These efforts were, no doubt, intended to bring the physical and spiritual realms closer to one another. Structures that were aligned with heavenly bodies in space or embodied the geography of mythical realms created an earthly environment in harmony with the cosmos, an environment that facilitated ceremonial communication with beings in all realms of existence. Many scientists believe, for example, that the Angkor Wat temple complex in Cambodia was built to integrate information from both physical and mythological realms. This is footnote 9, David Roberts, Splendor in the Jungle at Angkor, in Reader's Digest, The World's Last Mysteries, 3rd printing, Pleasantville, The Reader's Digest Association, Inc., 1979, page 252. In an article on Angkor Wat, National Geographic writer Douglas Preston explains that the ancient Khmer created water projects, quote, not only for agriculture, but also for religious purposes. They created broad moats around temples and built immense sacred lakes called bares, symbolic of the oceans surrounding the mythical Mount Meru, the center of the universe. End quote. Footnote 10, Douglas Preston, The Temples of Angkor, in National Geographic Magazine, 198, that's page 198, number 2, 2000, page 89. Far from merely being places for ceremony and worship, it is clear that ancient peoples believed in the power of the sites they created to actually assist in spiritual evolution. Okay, so that's the end of part 1 of 2. I'll be back with the second part of chapter 9. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. I also want to remind you that I also have many other videos on this site. Some of them teach psychic skills and provide experiments of ways that you can enhance your psychic powers. Other videos explore different kinds of energetic properties, and there are a few channeled messages as well. All right, have a wonderful day. See you later. Bye.